Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Reads. Today I want to discuss the book Bloodbound by by Patricia Briggs. It's part of the Mercedes Thompson series. So Bloodbound by Patricia Briggs, Mercedes Thompson series. This is the second book in the series. Pretty sure I reviewed the first one. If not, I can go and record another one. Anyway, another thing too is that I intended on doing these in chronological order. Because there is a spin-off series, the Alpha and Omega series, which occurs tangentially to this. I'd meant to do this in chronological order in which the stories progress instead of the order in which they were published. There is a book in the Alpha Omega series that appears between this one and the first book, Moon Called. So boo-boo on my part. I'll make up for that in the next video. Or next, not video, but recording of this book series. So, as always, minor spoilers. Also, a brief backstory. Mercedes Thompson is a mechanic living in the Tri-Cities area of like Seattle and stuff like that. She's a mechanic. She is also what's known as a walker. She can shift between human and coyote form instantaneously. In this world, the Fae have come out, revealed themselves to the world in an attempt to live in modern society. At the end of the last book, the werewolves have also come out. There are other nasties that go bump the night that are not generally known to the public. One of them is the vampires. The vampires have not come out. So, due to some of the events in the previous book, Mercy had asked help from the local vampire seed. Mercy now owes them a debt, which Stefan, one of the vampires of the sieve, comes to Mercedes to collect. Now, Stefan is not an ordinary vampire. One of the things that is repeatedly mentioned is that he drives a van that he has painted to look like the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo. So he is a bit more personable and less creepy and scary than the other vampires that Mercedes has had to interact with. Basically, Stefan is just looking for Mercedes to be a witness in her coyote form. He is going to meet another vampire who is in the sea's territory, and only wants Mercy there as like a witness, nothing more, in her coyote form, so that the other vampire doesn't know she's there as a witness, kind of like a prop. That's all he intends for her to be. However, this vampire is a bit more than either of them had anticipated. Stefan is an older vampire who is very strong. He is magically subdued to the point where he doesn't resist anything that the other vampire does. They do both manage to get out alive, but not without some trouble. And now, they're forced to deal with the consequences of this very unusual, very powerful vampire. And of course, as usual, the werewolves are drawn into it. Just because this threatens more than just the security of the vampire seed, this becomes a wider problem. So, some minor spoilers of the first couple of chapters, some events in the first couple of chapters, but the only one that I really consider to be a major spoiler is that the vampire, kind of magically subdues Stefan. One of the things that I really appreciate about the series, especially this second book, is the way Patricia Briggs deepens the relationships of the other characters. I complained about the repetitive plot exposition in the Dresden Files. That occurs here too, but it's much less heavy-handed, and so it becomes a bit easier to deal with. And as I said, we get to learn more about not Mercedes herself. We get to know her pretty well in the first book. Most of the things that they tell about her aren't really revelations. They're just incidents that we learn about that happened previously that fit in with our character. Um, but we learn things about Samuel, who is, you know, at the end of the previous book, she is in kind of a triangle between love triangle between Samuel and Adam. Samuel is her current roommate, who was her teenage lover, or teenage boyfriend, who she broke up with, and Adam is the head of the werewolf pack who lives across the street from her. So there's kind of a bit of romantic triangle going on there, but we learn things about the two of them. And not just them. We learn about Z, the Fae who Mercy bought the garage from. We learn about some of the other Fae. We learn about some of the other members of the pack, of Adam's pack. And so I really liked this book exploring the characters around Mercy. This book is from her point of view, and she is the primary character, but she is not the only interesting character. We interact with some of the other vampires in the Seed. We learn about them. We learn about Stefan and Andre and Marsilia and the other. Like I said, we and I'm repeating myself because I have nothing else to do. But that's what really kept me going in this series. I mean, I became interested in urban fantasy, modern urban fantasy, because of Mercedes Thompson and the Dresden Files. But of the two of them, I find myself coming back to the Mercy Thompson books more because of the characters. I think she does a really, really good job of creating interesting character and teasing out bits and details of their personalities and their pasts and their, how they think and how they interact and what type of people they are. So much more interestingly and so much more realistically than some other authors. Rereading, again, it's a short book. It's less than 300 pages. It's 291 pages. So this, I burned through this pretty quickly, especially since I'd read it previously. I just kind of skimmed it to try and prep for this. I was surprised at some of the things I had forgotten. But, I really like the Mercy Thompson books. They are fairly light, most of these books take place in a very short period of time. I think this is one of the books that takes place over the longest period of time, just because there's like, there's like some, there's the first chapter, and then like a couple weeks go by, and then things kind of stagnate and then catch up again. So, most of these books take place over the course of like 3 to 5 days. And this is the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that actually takes place over the course of, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month's time total. Even so, short book, easy read. I think it's a fun read, and I find myself very interested in the characters. So, it's given the plethora of books in this type of genre that have been written in years since, it's not original anymore. When it first came out, which was when when was this published? Come on. 2007. This book's almost 20 years old, man. So 20 some odd years ago, werewolf romance was much more rare. It was just starting to become a thing. So this book was far more original back in the early 2000s than it is today. Still, I really, really like the books in the Mercy universe, both the main Mercedes Thompson books and the spin-off Alpha and Omega series. I like them both. I'll get into Alpha and Omega when I read that book. So, as always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.